My name is Arabella Kingsley, and I'm 17 years old. When my sister Belle shoved me through our mother's glass office door and the shards tore into my neck and skull, the impact stole my voice and my body, but not my hearing. I heard everything. Every broken apology, every whispered accusation, every excuse my parents made to protect the daughter who tried to kill me. For 21 days, I lay trapped inside myself while my family finally said the quiet parts out loud, thinking I was gone, or close enough. But before the glass, before the screams and sirens and the paramedic next door pressing his hands against the artery in my neck, there were years of smaller cuts. Not from glass, from words. From the way my parents talked about us. From the way they talked about her. Growing up as Belle's little sister felt like sharing a house with a live grenade everyone insisted was gifted. Belle was 3 years older than me, taller, stronger, built like she was carved for the volleyball court at Lincoln High. Coaches called her a natural. Parents of other girls called her a star in the making. My parents called her our special girl. Me, I was an afterthought, an add-on. I remember the first time I understood that. I was 12. Belle was 15. I was in the backyard pretending my sketchbook was a shield, sprawled under the old maple tree. The kitchen window was open. I didn't mean to overhear. Why does she even exist? Belle said, her voice flat, bored, as if she were talking about an extra chair in the dining room. I froze, pencil tip digging into the page. Our mother sighed. I could picture her at the counter, wiping the same imaginary stain again and again. Belle, sweetheart, you're still our special girl. Arabella is just here. That word lodged in my chest like a splinter. Just here. Belle got trophies and framed action shots in the hallway. I got my drawings stuck on the side of the fridge with generic magnets, carefully placed where guests wouldn't see them first. Belle got, she's under so much pressure, you know how it is. I got, don't be dramatic, Arabella. Your sister's going through a lot. She was the sun in our family universe. I was something that orbited her. Small, inconvenient, easy to dismiss. On paper, we looked like a picture-perfect suburban family. 2 daughters, 2 parents, 2 cars, 1 tidy house with geraniums by the front steps. Inside that house, it was a different story. Belle didn't shove me through a glass door the first time she decided I'd taken up too much space. It started with accidents. A hard elbow to my ribs when no one was looking. A shove on the stairs that sent me sliding down the last 4 steps. A playful hit that left purple blooming beneath my collarbone. Oops, she'd say, wide-eyed. Arabella, you're so clumsy. The first time she left a bruise big enough to make me flinch when I lifted my arm, I told my parents exactly what happened. We were at the dinner table. Mom was scraping pasta into bowls. Dad was scrolling through his phone. Belle pushed me, I said, on purpose. My mother didn't even pause. Sisters fight sometimes. She does more than fight, I insisted. She gets scary. Dad finally looked up, his brows knitting together like I'd interrupted something important. You're being too sensitive, Arabella. Your sister is under a lot of pressure with school and volleyball. That word again. Pressure. As if stress were a get-out-of-consequences card. Later that night, Belle cornered me in the hallway. You told on me, she'd whispered, smiling in a way that never reached her eyes. And they still took my side. Her smile sharpened. Remember that feeling? By the time I was 14, I'd become a professional at shrinking. I learned how to slip through rooms like a ghost, how to laugh off pain, how to apologize, just for existing in Belle's line of sight. Only one person refused to believe the performance. Tyler. Tyler Jameson had lived next door for as long as I could remember. Our bedroom windows faced each other across the narrow gap between our houses. When we were 6, he'd passed me a note through the branches of the maple tree that grew between our yards. Do you want to be friends? Yes? No. I'd checked yes. By 14, friends had become something quieter and steadier between us. We still did homework together, still shared snacks and jokes, but now his hand would sometimes find mine under the table, warm and solid. By 16, he was my boyfriend, the only person who made me feel like I was not just here, but actually wanted. He'd seen enough of Belle's accidents to know they weren't accidents at all. We were in his room the day he called me out. I'd told my parents I was studying at the library. I didn't bother correcting the detail. Tyler's house smelled like laundry detergent and coffee. It smelled like safety. Take off your hoodie, he said. I huddled deeper into it. I'm cold. You hate being too warm, he countered. You wore that same hoodie when it was 80 degrees last week. Let me see. Ty! He didn't raise his voice. He just stood there, holding my gaze until the part of me that trusted him more than anyone else gave in. My fingers trembled as I tugged the hoodie off. The bruise on my shoulder bloomed angry and dark, spreading toward my collarbone like an ink spill. Tyler exhaled slowly, not surprised, just devastated. "That's not from tripping over your backpack," he said. "Belle was just horsing around," I muttered. "She doesn't know her own strength sometimes." He laughed once, harsh. "Arabella, she's captain of the volleyball team. She lifts more than I do. She knows exactly how strong she is." My throat burned. "What am I supposed to do, Ty? Every time I say something, my parents act like I'm overreacting, like I'm trying to make Belle look bad." His jaw clenched. "She's going to cross a line she can't come back from. You know that, right?" I did know. I'd felt it for years, a storm building in the walls of our house. "Look at me," he said softly, stepping closer. When I did, his eyes were fierce, not with anger at me, but for me. "If they won't protect you, then we protect you, you and me. We build our own record." "Our own record," I repeated, unsure. "Document everything," he said. "Every bruise, every cut, every time she accidentally shoves you into a wall. Take pictures, write down dates, times, what happened, who was home." "And then what?" My voice sounded small, even to me. "And then one day," Tyler said, "when someone finally has to listen, they won't be able to pretend they didn't know." He found an old notebook in his desk drawer and placed it in my hands like something sacred. "Keep it here," he said, "at my place. She goes through your room, right?" I thought of Belle's fingers rifling through my sketchbooks, my drawers, my backpack, looking for, what, evidence I existed? "She does," I admitted. "Then she doesn't get this," he said firmly. "This is ours." The first entry felt like a betrayal, like I was tattling on my own family. But the second entry felt like survival. A week after that conversation, Belle accidentally slammed a door on my wrist when I tried to walk past her. I heard the crack before I felt the pain. "It was an accident," she told our parents while I iced the swelling. "She walked so close behind me, it's creepy." My mother offered me a painkiller and a sigh. My father reminded me that I needed to be more mindful of Belle's space. Tyler took one look at my wrist, at the way I flinched when he brushed the skin and reached for the notebook. "Page 4, he said quietly, handing me a pen. We built a secret archive in his closet, photographs of bruises, short, factual descriptions of what happened, dates, times, sometimes a note about what my parents said afterward, which was usually nothing, or some version of, 'She's under pressure, Arabella, let it go.' Every entry made Belle feel less like an all-powerful hurricane and more like what she really was. Dangerous, yes, but also traceable, trackable, exposed. We didn't know it yet, but that journal would become the only reason my story didn't end on the floor of my mother's office, surrounded by broken glass. Because storms always break. And the night Belle finally shattered, she took our family's lies down with her. Opportunity arrived on a Saturday morning, folded neatly inside a large white envelope. I was at the kitchen table, half distracted by the sound of Belle's volleyball bouncing in the driveway outside. Mom slid the envelope toward me with a dish towel still in her hand, like she'd accidentally picked my future up while cleaning. "This came for you," she said, "from Riverside Arts Academy." For a second, the world narrowed to the return address. Riverside Arts Academy, Visual Arts Division. My hands shook as I tore it open. Heavy paper, embossed logo. That had to be good, right? "Dear Ms. Kingsley," I read aloud, voice wobbling, "we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into the Regional Elite Visual Arts Program for Graphic Design and Digital Media." The words blurred. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "You did it? You actually did it." Dad looked up from his coffee in the sports section, offering a distracted smile. "That's fantastic, Arabella. Great job, kiddo." He pulled me into a side hug without fully taking his eyes off the scores. Mom gave me a tight, brittle smile. "Congratulations, sweetheart. That's wonderful." It sounded like she was apologizing to someone I couldn't see. The back door opened. Belle stepped into the kitchen in a streak of sweat and sunshine, ponytail swinging, volleyball under one arm. "What's happening?" she asked, already suspicious. Mom's hand tightened on the dish towel. "Arabella got accepted into that design program," she said, voice softening with guilt. "At Riverside Arts Academy." Belle's face darkened instantly. "The one at Riverside?" she repeated. "As in my Riverside, where I have volleyball practice 3 times a week?" I swallowed. "They're in different buildings. We probably won't even see each other." "Perfect," she said, dropping the volleyball on the floor with a dull thud. So now you'll invade my territory too. Is there anything you don't have to take from me? I'm not taking anything, I said carefully. I worked hard for this. The slap came so fast I barely saw her hand move. My head snapped to the side. The kitchen blurred, then snapped back into focus with a white-hot stripe of pain across my cheek. Belle, Mom said sharply, but weakly, like she already regretted saying even that much. We do not hit in this house. She provoked me, Belle replied smoothly, as if she'd rehearsed it. Bragging about her little art thing, when you know I've been stressed about college. Dad didn't even look up this time. Arabella, maybe dial down the celebration, okay? You know your sister has a lot on her plate. My hand pressed against my burning cheek. She just hit me, and I'm the one who needs to calm down? Don't be so dramatic, Mom sighed. It was barely a tap. Belle's eyes glittered triumphantly, daring me to push harder. I didn't. I'd learned exactly how those scenes ended. Tyler noticed the mark before I finished climbing through his bedroom window that afternoon. Stop, he said, catching my chin gently in his hand as I tried to turn away. The nickname slipped out like a habit. Who hit you? I walked into the cabinet door, I lied automatically. He didn't even bother responding to that. Do you want me to pretend I believe you? He asked quietly. Or do you want help? The question cracked something inside me. I got into the Riverside program, I said instead, my voice a mess of pride and shame. Same campus where she practices. She lost it. My parents told me not to rub it in. Tyler's jaw flexed. Page 16, he muttered, reaching for the journal. We're writing this down. I watched my own hand move, almost detached, as I recorded the details. Date, time, location. Trigger, acceptance letter to arts program. Incident, slapped across face in front of both parents. No consequences. You realize this is serious, right? Tyler said. This isn't normal sibling stuff. This is escalation. I know, I said. And I also know they won't do anything until she actually kills me or comes close. The horrible part was, I didn't mean it as a prediction. I meant it as sarcasm. The universe didn't seem to care. Things got worse after that. Belle had pinned all her hopes on a full volleyball scholarship to Stanford. It was the story she told herself about who she was, the girl who'd escape our small-town sameness by launching herself straight into a future of prestige and sunshine. When the rejection letter came, she didn't rip it up. She set it neatly on the counter, stared at it like it might change if she glared hard enough, then went hunting for me. I was in the upstairs hallway, sketchbook tucked under my arm, when she found me. This is karma, she hissed, stepping into my space. For what? I asked, already bracing. For you, she snapped. For your stupid awards and perfect grades and elite art programs. You stole my scholarship. You jinxed my future. That doesn't even make logical sense, Belle, I said quietly. Scholarships aren't magical curses. Her hand shot out before I could finish. She grabbed my wrist and twisted. Pain detonated up my arm. I choked back a cry, knees buckling. Everything terrible that happens to me is because of you, she whispered, face inches from mine. Mom and Dad baby you because you're weak. Teachers worship you because you're pitiful. Everyone thinks you're so special, but you're not, Arabella. You're a parasite. She released me with the shove that sent me crashing into the wall. I cradled my wrist against my chest, breaths coming shallow and fast. The hallway swam in and out of focus. Belle! Mom's voice floated up from downstairs. Are you two okay up there? We're fine, Belle called back sweetly, never taking her eyes off me. Just talking. When I tried to hold my pencil in art class the next day, my fingers refused to cooperate. My wrist throbbed with every tiny movement. Arabella, what happened? My art teacher, Ms. Harrison, asked, gaze sharp behind her glasses. I fell down some stairs, I said, forcing my face into a neutral mask. Uh-huh. She studied me. You understand I'm required to report suspected abuse, don't you? Please don't, I said quickly, panic rising. It'll just make things worse at home. Her eyes softened with something like helpless anger. My classroom is a safe space, she said quietly, if you ever change your mind. We added another entry to the journal that afternoon. Tyler photographed my swollen wrist, his hands careful, gentle, furious. She's going to seriously hurt you, he said under his breath. More than this. She already has, I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. The spring art exhibition was supposed to be my escape hatch, a night where my work would be displayed as the centerpiece of the school gallery, where people would say my name without attaching it to Belle's. Mom actually circled the date on the calendar. Dad said he'd try to get off work early. It felt like a fragile, flickering promise that for once they'd show up for me. The morning of the exhibition, Belle was in a mood I recognized too well. She'd just received another rejection email, from a backup school this time. Hillside Community College was now her only option, and she treated it like a prison sentence. "Must be nice," she said from my bedroom doorway, watching me carefully steam my simple navy dress. "Getting everything handed to you while I get nothing but rejection." I turned off the steamer and set it on the dresser, choosing my words like stepping stones over a minefield. "I'm sorry about the college stuff," I said. "Really, but this isn't about you. This exhibition it's all I've been working toward this year." Her lip curled. "Of course it's about me. Everything in this house is about me. Or it's supposed to be." "That's not how it works, Belle." "Don't you dare correct me," she snapped, stepping fully into my room. Her energy felt wrong, wired, jagged, like a storm trapped in a too small container. "You wormed your way into my academy. You stole the attention that was supposed to be mine. Now you want a whole gallery night where everyone stares at you?" "I want one night where you don't," I said softly, "where you don't make it about you." Her eyes went flat, dangerous. "You know what, Arabella?" she whispered. "Being born was your first act of sabotage." A chill crawled down my spine. "I can't help being born," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe you should have tried harder." I picked up my dress from the bed and moved toward the door, determined to get away before she tipped over. "Don't walk away from me," she snarled. Her hand slammed into my shoulder. The push had weight behind it, years of resentment, every excuse our parents ever made for her, every time they told me to be quiet for her sake. The hallway outside my room was narrow. On one side, the stairs. On the other side, just a few feet away, my mother's pride and joy, the decorative glass door that led into her home office. Frosted, geometric, expensive. "Reinforced," she'd told guests, smug. My back hit the door before I could grab the railing or the wall. For a split second, I thought, Mom is going to be furious about the door. Then the glass didn't just crack, it exploded. The sound was like a gunshot underwater, dull, echoing, wrong. Cold shards tore into my scalp, my neck, my shoulders. The world became a blur of white and red and shattering light. I fell backward into the office, glass raining down around me in jagged sheets. Something sharp bit cruelly into the side of my throat. Warmth spread under my head, sticky and terrifying. "She's bleeding," someone screamed. "Belle? My mother?" "Oh my God, there's so much blood. What did you do, Belle? What did you do?" "I didn't mean to." Belle's voice, high and hysterical. "She makes me so angry. She's always making me angry. It was an accident." "Arabella isn't responding. Someone call 911. Footsteps pounded. A man's voice, Mr. Jameson, Tyler's dad, the paramedic, cut through the chaos. "Move," he ordered. "Press here, harder. If we don't stop this, she's going to bleed out before the ambulance gets here." I wanted to say Tyler's name. I wanted to say I'm scared. I wanted to say I told you this would happen. My mouth wouldn't move. The ceiling blurred, then tunneled, then vanished altogether as the darkness roared up to meet me. Darkness wrapped around me like a thick underwater blanket, heavy, suffocating, impossibly quiet except for the things I was never meant to hear. Comas aren't peaceful. They aren't restful. They're prisons with sound. My body refused to move. My eyelids weighed 1,000 pounds. But my ears? They worked too well. Every whisper, every argument, every lie spoken near what my family thought was my unconscious shell carved itself into me like a second layer of scars. "She's incredibly lucky to be alive," a voice said, steady, professional. "Dr. Robertson, the trauma surgeon." I learned the cadence of her footsteps before I ever saw her face again. The glass severed an artery in her neck. The blood loss was significant. If your neighbor hadn't been a paramedic— "Tyler's father," Mom whispered, choked. "Yes, if he hadn't applied pressure immediately, she wouldn't have made it to the hospital." Lucky. That word curled into my mind like smoke. Because I didn't feel lucky. I felt trapped. Floating somewhere between being alive and being dead, listening to my life fall apart without being able to lift a finger to stop it. My parents sat by my bed in shifts, though neither talked to me. They talked at me, around me, about lawyers and guilt and Belle. Especially Belle. It started with mutters. "Do you think the district attorney will actually pursue charges?" Mom whispered one night, her voice a thin ribbon of fear. "She's our daughter," Dad said. "We'll get her a good attorney. This was an accident." "Was it?" Mom's voice cracked. "After everything we ignored? After everything we excused?" Silence, thick and dangerous. 3 days into my coma, Belle snapped. The door swung open with her usual force, but nobody shushed her. Nobody dared. She stormed into the room like she owned even this space. And then, "Why is everyone acting like this is my fault?" she exploded, voice shaking with a blend of panic and rage. "She's always been the problem. You always said that." Mom gasped. "Belle, lower your voice." "Why?" Belle shouted. "She can't hear anything. Dr. Robertson said she might be brain dead." "Wrong. I heard everything." "She might die," Dad said quietly. "Arabella might actually die." Belle scoffed, a sound that sliced through the room. "Oh, please. She's always making everything about herself." Mom sobbed. "Belle, stop!" "No!" Belle screamed. "You always took her side, always blamed me when she provoked me. You told me I was special. You told me she was just here. You let me think she ruined everything the moment she was born." "That wasn't Belle. We didn't mean," Mom sputtered. "But you said it," Belle hissed. "And you kept saying it. Every time I complained about her, you said, 'You're still our special girl.' You fed it. You fed all of it." Silence. Heavy. Sickening. "You created this monster," she whispered. Nobody argued. I wanted to move. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach out and stop my parents from pretending shock now when they'd lit every fuse that led to this explosion. But my body stayed still. Hours passed. Days. Machines beeped. Nurses whispered. The air conditioner hummed endlessly above me. Then there was Tyler. I always knew when it was him because he didn't sound like guilt or denial or excuses. He sounded like life. His footsteps were soft, careful. He always pulled the chair exactly 6 inches away from my bed so he wouldn't bump anything. He always exhaled shakily before speaking, like he was trying to release emotion before it drowned him. "Hey, R," he said one afternoon, voice warm enough to crack the cold I was trapped in. "Art exhibition went up without you." A shaky laugh. "Your portfolio got a standing ovation. Miss Harrison recorded it. I'll show you when you wake up." When you wake up. Not if. That mattered. He talked about school, about my teachers asking about me, about how quiet the halls felt without me scribbling sketches during study periods. Then he leaned closer, voice dropping. "The police found your journal," he whispered. "My mom gave it to them as soon as they asked." My heart clenched. "They couldn't ignore it," he continued. "Your parents tried to say Belle's behavior was exaggerated, but the photos..." His breath hitched. They made detectives sick." His fingers brushed mine, a touch I couldn't return, though I tried with everything I had. "Teachers testified too," he added. "Neighbors. Even Belle's own friends said she talked about hurting you, like it was a joke, like it was normal." He swallowed. "She's going down for this. You're going to get justice, I promise." Justice. I used to think justice meant fairness. Now I understood it meant truth finally being too loud to ignore. The next day, I heard Dr. Reynolds, the neurologist overseeing my case, deliver the words that made my mother fall apart. "Every day she remains in this coma state, the chances of a full recovery decrease significantly." "What exactly does that mean?" Mom begged. "It means she may not wake up. Or if she does, she may experience memory loss, personality changes, or permanent motor deficits. Brain injuries are unpredictable." I heard Dad sit down hard, like the air had been punched out of him. "She could wake up tomorrow," Dr. Reynolds added gently, "or she might never regain full consciousness. We simply don't know." Later, Aunt Patricia arrived. Her heels clicked sharply against the tile. Furious footsteps. Righteous footsteps. "How could you let this happen?" she demanded before the door even closed. "Everyone knew Belle was violent toward Arabella. Everyone. And you did nothing." "She's our daughter," Dad muttered weakly. "So was Arabella," Patricia snapped. "You thought protecting Belle meant ignoring the damage she did? You were wrong." Mom sobbed. "We didn't think it would go this far." "It always goes this far," Patricia said, voice thick with grief. "Violence escalates. It always escalates until someone pays the price." Belle's attorney tried arguing that everything was just sibling rivalry, but prosecutors found something worse than the journal and photos. The door. The custom glass door my mother loved had been installed incorrectly. Regular plate glass instead of safety glass. Illegal, dangerous, deadly. The wrong door turned Belle's shove from violent to catastrophic. And legally, that changed everything. I learned all of this from Tyler, who came every day, reading updates like daily letters from the outside world. "They're charging Belle with aggravated assault and attempted murder," he told me softly. "And your parents? They're under investigation for child neglect and failure to protect a minor. It's bad, R." He placed his hand over mine. "It should have been me holding your hand at graduation, taking you to college tours, celebrating your wins, not sitting next to you while you fight for your life." His voice cracked. Wake up, he whispered. Please, I'm right here. I tried. God, I tried. I pushed at the darkness, scratched at it, begged my eyelids to lift, begged my fingers to twitch, begged something to break through the invisible barrier, keeping me silent. Then, one day, maybe a week later, maybe 10 days, time didn't exist in that place. Tyler's hand wrapped around mine, warm and steady. And something inside me shifted. I pushed again, and my index finger twitched. Tyler froze. Arabella? His voice shook. Do that again. I tried. Every part of me screamed. But my finger twitched a second time. He shot out of his chair so fast it screeched against the floor. Nurse, nurse, she moved, she moved. Footsteps thundered in. Machines beeped. Lights flared behind my eyelids as someone pried them open gently. She's responding to stimuli, a voice said. This is a very good sign. Good sign. It was the first hopeful thing I'd heard in 21 days. But waking up wasn't applause and sunlight. It was drowning upward from a lake of pain. It was fighting my own body inch by inch. It was learning how to breathe again. And it was only the beginning. Waking up wasn't a moment. It was a battle. Slow, disorienting, agonizing. The first time I peeled my eyes open, the world was blurry and too bright. Shapes loomed, voices overlapped. Cold air stung my skin. A nurse leaned over me, shining a small flashlight into each eye. She's tracking, someone said. That's good. That's very good. Good. Everything in my body hurt. My head throbbed with a slow, merciless pulse. My throat burned from the ventilator tube that had been removed 2 days before. My tongue felt too heavy in my mouth. But then, Arabella? Tyler's voice, a sound I had been clawing toward for weeks. I turned my head toward him, a movement that sent bolts of pain stabbing through my skull. He stood at the side of my bed, eyes swollen and red, lower lip trembling like he was holding 1,000 words behind it. Hey, he whispered, voice breaking. My lips cracked open. The first sound that escaped didn't feel like mine, a rough scrape of air and pain. I tried again, forcing my thoughts into a shape my body barely remembered. My voice was shredded and faint, but it existed. Tyler. He covered his mouth with both hands, shoulders shuddering. Then he sank into the chair, head bowed. You said my name, he whispered through tears. You said my name. He reached for my hand, touching it like it might dissolve. A sob slipped out before he could catch it. I'm here, he said, tears falling onto our joined hands. I've been here, every day. You didn't leave me, okay? You didn't leave. Mom stood in the doorway behind him, hands clasped to her chest, face blotchy and pale. Dad hovered behind her, stiff and terrified, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to exist in the same room as me. They didn't rush in. They didn't even speak. They looked at me like I was something fragile they'd already broken once. Good. Let them feel the weight of it. The next days blurred together in fragments. Machines beeping, nurses testing reflexes, Dr. Reynolds explaining the severity of my injuries. You sustained 3 skull fractures, Sir Funny, she told me gently. Your brain experienced significant trauma. The fact that you've regained consciousness is remarkable, but recovery will take time and patience. I nodded slowly. Even that small motion sent waves of pressure surging behind my eyes. Talking was worse. Walking felt impossible, and thinking, stringing memories together, was like trying to hold water in my hands. But I was alive, I had a chance. The legal system didn't wait for my strength to return. The trial proceeded while I was relearning how to swallow without choking. Tyler visited every day, updating me piece by piece, sitting in the same chair, reading from the same notebook where we'd once chronicled violence. They put Belle on the stand today, he said one afternoon as my physical therapist adjusted my walker. Her lawyer tried to paint her as overwhelmed, stressed, under too much pressure. I rolled my eyes and winced at the pain it caused. Classic. The prosecutor destroyed her, Tyler continued. They showed your journal, the photos. They brought in your teachers, neighbors, even her friends. One girl said Belle bragged about pushing you around. My stomach churned. And my parents? He hesitated. Their lawyer is arguing negligence, failure to protect. The social worker thinks they'll get probation and mandatory therapy instead of jail time. Of course, suddenly they cared about consequences, now that I'd almost died. Belle's not getting out of this, Tyler added quietly. The installer admitted it was wrong glass. That turned the whole case. I nodded, fingers flexing weakly. Good. He squeezed my hand. She's looking at real prison time. I didn't celebrate. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like the final, inevitable step in a story our parents wrote long before either of us understood the plot. 3 days later, while Tyler fed me spoonfuls of applesauce because my hands still shook too much, he told me the verdict. The jury found her guilty on every count, he said softly, aggravated assault and attempted murder. I inhaled sharply, and my lungs felt like they were full of glass again. How long? I whispered. Sentencing is next week, he said. Minimum of 15 years. I stared at the wall, at the patterns of light on the tiles, at the IV line snaking into my arm. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel relieved. I felt tired, so tired I could barely stay awake. My parents weren't there when I heard the verdict. They were waiting in the hallway, too ashamed or too afraid to face me when justice was spoken out loud. When I was strong enough to sit up without vomiting, Angela, the social worker, came to see me. She had kind eyes and a file folder full of decisions that would shape the rest of my life. Arabella, she said gently, sitting beside my bed, you're 17. Because of what happened, the court is allowing you the option to choose where you live. My heart thudded. You can remain with your parents, who legally still have custody. No, the word ripped out of me before she finished. She gave a small nod, unsurprised. Your Aunt Patricia has offered to take you in, permanently. She filed the paperwork the day after the trial began. I didn't even hesitate. Yes, I whispered. Please, I want that. Your parents are aware, Angela said. They don't agree, but they have no legal ground to fight it. Given the criminal neglect findings, the court feels your safety is the priority. Good. For once, someone cared about my safety. The day I was discharged, I moved into Aunt Patricia's house. The same afternoon, Belle was sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10. I chose not to attend. I didn't need to look at her. I didn't need closure. I let my journal, the record of every bruise and betrayal, tell the story. According to Tyler, Belle finally broke down at sentencing. Not from remorse, but because the courtroom stopped believing the version of herself she'd spent her whole life rehearsing. My parents called that night. I didn't answer. 2 days later, they showed up at Patricia's house with flowers, guilt etched into every wrinkle of their faces. Arabella, Mom whispered, we're so incredibly sorry. We failed you. We know that now. I didn't say anything. Dad swallowed hard. We're in therapy. We're trying to understand how we let this happen. That's good, I said quietly. Keep going. Mom's eyes overflowed. Could we maybe meet for coffee sometime? Start rebuilding? I stared at them for a long moment. No, I said softly. You chose Belle over my safety for 17 years. You don't get to choose me now that she's gone. Mom fell apart on the doorstep. Dad tried to speak, but no words came out. I closed the door gently. Inside, Aunt Patricia wrapped an arm around me. Tyler held my hand. My real family. Recovery was brutal. Weeks of physical therapy, memory tests that left me sobbing, nights where the headaches felt like lightning breaking open inside my skull. But I survived, and slowly, inch by inch, I began to live again. By the time I graduated high school a year late, I could walk without assistance. I could think without getting lost. I could draw again, even if my lines weren't as clean as they used to be. Tyler was waiting for me at the end of the ceremony, smiling like the future belonged to us. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. If trauma has an echo, healing has one too. It's softer, slower, a quiet sound you only hear when your life finally stops shaking. Living with Aunt Patricia felt like stepping into a world I didn't know existed. A world where footsteps didn't mean danger, where silence wasn't a warning, where someone asking, "Are you okay?" actually wanted an answer. Her home smelled like lavender and citrus soap. There were warm lamps instead of harsh overhead lights, soft blankets in every room, and framed photographs of her kids and her giant, drooling golden retriever who adopted me immediately. Safety feels strange at first, she told me one evening as we washed dishes together. Almost uncomfortable, but you'll grow into it. She was right. Some nights I'd still flinch when someone closed a door too loudly. Sometimes I woke up sweating, thinking I heard Belle's footsteps outside my room. But every time, Patricia's calm voice or Tyler's steady arms grounded me. You're not there anymore, Tyler whispered once at 2 a.m. when he'd driven over in his pajamas because I told him I couldn't breathe. You're safe. I'm right here. He kept saying those words until I believed them. I graduated high school 1 year later than planned, walking across the stage in a cap decorated with tiny hand-painted stars. My fingers still weren't as steady as they used to be, but they were steady enough. My parents sat in the very back row of the auditorium. They didn't try to come closer. Afterward, they approached me outside, hands trembling, eyes hollow. We're trying, Arabella, Dad said quietly. We want to make amends. Mom nodded through tears. We're going to therapy. We just want a chance to. To what? I asked softly. Rewrite the past? Pretend you didn't spend 17 years looking the other way? We love you, Mom whispered. We have always loved you. I shook my head. No, you loved the version of me who stayed quiet so Belle wouldn't be upset. You loved convenience, not me. Then I walked away. I didn't look back. Tyler slipped his hand into mine. Aunt Patricia hugged me tight. And slowly I felt a weight lifting, not because they apologized, but because their apologies no longer had power over me. College opened a door I didn't know I could walk through. The part of my brain that once handled complex spatial mapping, the part that made me a gifted designer, that part was damaged. My lines weren't as controlled. Colors felt wrong. Depth didn't behave the way it used to. At first, I grieved, not for what Belle took from me, but for what I might never get back. But then, in an elective course, I discovered something unexpected: art therapy. People with trauma see the world differently, my academic advisor told me during office hours, and that means they can help others in ways textbooks never could. Art therapy didn't demand perfect lines or flawless technique. It demanded empathy, presence, understanding. And those were things I had in abundance. By junior year, I was interning at a rehabilitation center for teens recovering from traumatic brain injuries, some from accidents, some from violence. One girl changed everything for me. Amber was 15, quiet, thin as a matchstick, always wearing oversized sweatshirts that swallowed her hands. She'd been pushed down a concrete staircase by her mother's boyfriend. She couldn't speak yet. The damage to her brain was still healing. But she could paint. Her first strokes were shaky, hesitant. But then she painted a doorway, splintered, red, jagged, a shape falling through it, a smear of darkness underneath. I froze. Amber, I whispered, sitting beside her. That looks like... She didn't look up, but her brush trembled. I remembered the glass door, the blood, the cold. And suddenly, there we were, two girls connected by violence and survival. Art remembers even when we can't, I told her gently. It lives in parts of the brain that trauma can't always reach. She dipped her brush again, a new color, softer, pale yellow. She painted it over the darkness, not hiding it, but lighting it from above. We both cried. It wasn't weakness, it was release. It arrived during my senior year of college, a plain envelope, my name written in a handwriting I recognized immediately. Belle. My stomach twisted. A lawyer forwarded it, probably because I'd blocked all prison correspondence months ago. I almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity, the kind built from wounds, not wonder, made me open it. Inside was one sheet of paper. No greeting. No apology. Just this. I still blame you. I will always blame you. You stole my life. That was it. No explanation, no remorse, no recognition of what she'd done. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I laughed, quietly, then louder. Because for the first time, her words didn't land like a blade. They landed like proof. Proof that she was frozen in the past, while I was living in a future she never imagined I'd reach. I folded the letter once, placed it in my drawer, and shut it gently. Not to keep the pain, but to remind myself how far I'd climbed. Sometimes I walk past mirrors and see the faint scars along my hairline and neck, the places where glass turned me into a story that almost ended too soon. Sometimes I still hear her voice in old memories. Sometimes I wonder who I would have been without the violence. But here's what I know now. Healing isn't linear. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Peace is something you build, not something you owe. People ask if I'll ever forgive Belle. Will I? Here's the truth. When someone tries to destroy you but ends up destroying themselves instead, do you owe them forgiveness to find your own peace? Or is your peace found in building a life so full, so safe, so meaningful that their absence isn't even noticed? I built that life, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And every morning, when I wake up in a world she can no longer touch, I choose myself. Every single day.